Na realidade, sendo bem verdadeiro, é que ninguém nem nada nessa vida vai me bater mais do que a vida já me bateu. Então, por isso, o que esses caras falam, o que esses caras pensam que vão deixar de fazer, pra mim não faz diferença nenhuma.
Is the best lightweight that you could have fought?
100%. He's the best lightweight right now. If we don't count Islam, he's the best after him. I could submit him, I can knock him out. Whatever I want, I can do with him. I know that he has the most finishes in the UFC history, but as I said, I feel that I'm much better than him everywhere. He fought with guys.
Tensions hit a boiling point as Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira make an appearance during media day. What was supposed to be routine quickly turned explosive, threats were exchanged, and the intensity set the tone for war. The media day began with Ilia Topuria asserting himself in classic fashion. With firm composure, he stated that Charles Oliveira would attempt to win, but ultimately fall short. Ilia made it clear he planned to dictate the fight's rhythm, forcing Charles to adapt to his pace, rather than the other way around. His tone was controlled, but the message was clear. He wasn't showing up just to compete. He was there to dominate. As the cameras captured his presence, the tension set in, paving the way for Charles to respond.
Today he said, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to march forward and get into a fight.
Remember, this is what he's going to try to do. That's not something he's going to do. He's going to try to do it. He's going to try to win, of course.
Are you surprised, though, that he's so willing to get into this firefight with you, and does that play into your hands during the fight? It's turned out to be almost like a 2-minute sprint until you land and end this fight early.
2-minute sprint? No. He's gonna try to walk forward. He's not gonna find a way to do it.
Following Ilia's direct remarks, Charles Oliveira delivered his own calm yet determined response. When asked about his approach, Charles made it clear that he was focused on the same mission he's always pursued, winning and continuing to build a lasting legacy. His demeanor was focused and disciplined, showing none of the emotional reaction that might be expected. Rather than engaging in verbal warfare, Charles channeled the moment into quiet confidence. His presence stood in contrast to Ilia's fire, signaling a battle not just of skills, but of personalities and philosophies.
Ainda continuo querendo fazer história. Essa é uma grande luta. Para minha história, para o meu legado, eu tô pronto para isso.
The same way I've always done it. A guy that continues to be thirsty. A guy who's hungry for the win. This is for my legacy. This is for my history. I'm ready for this fight.
As the atmosphere heated up, former featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski offered his perspective on the matchup. He was visibly excited, analyzing how Charles might initiate the bout with striking before turning to grappling exchanges. At the same time, he warned against underestimating Ilia simply due to physical stature. For Volkanovski, it wasn't about size, it was about timing, adaptability, and pressure. His insight added another layer of intrigue to the already charged narrative, setting the stage for deeper technical expectations around what each fighter would bring to the octagon.
That Charles Oliveira, does he know that, man, Ilia's powerful, his early chance is knocking me out, I'm not going to give it to him. I might press and look for that takedown, grab a hold of him, I'm bigger, I'm a lightweight. Does he approach it that way? Doesn't even, because a lot of times with Charles, even though he backs his grappling, he will always strike first then grapple, if that makes sense. So he put himself in danger and be aggressive on the feet and then grab a hold. Will he not do any of that and just shoot, be more defensive till he shoots for the takedown? We will see. So that's going to be could that be a part of his game?
Continuing the media day commentary, Ilia Topuria doubled down on his confidence. Acknowledging Charles Oliveira's reputation for finishes, Ilia stated that his own skill set was superior in every area. He didn't focus on stats or records, but on current ability. This wasn't arrogance, it was belief built on preparation. His statement underlined the fact that he saw himself not just as a worthy challenger, but as the better fighter.
I could submit him, I can knock him out. Whatever I want, I can do with him. I know that he has the most finishes in the UFC history, but as I said, I feel that I'm much better than him everywhere. He fought with guys that none of them are named Ilia Topuria. He never faced that Matador. He's gonna feel something completely different that he felt in the past with any opponents he had. And he's gonna feel that since the first second of the fight. Something completely different.
Meanwhile, Charles remained grounded in the face of Ilia's escalating narrative. He addressed the noise with subtle dismissal, stating that he wasn't interested in social media or constant talking. Instead, his focus remained fully on training and preparation. While Ilia drew attention with words, Charles opted for silence and sweat. His mindset suggested a veteran's discipline, ignoring distractions, staying locked in. This contrast between Ilia's outward projection and Charles's internal focus fueled the buildup even more, with each fighter sharpening their weapons in entirely different ways.
Enquanto eles estão falando, eu tô treinando, eu tô me dedicando. Você me conhece, eu não sou aquele que tem que ficar postando, aquele que tem que ficar falando, aquele que tem que fazer. Eu sei o que eu tenho que fazer. O trampo é dia 28, então eu tenho que simplesmente se focar e tá pronto. Tem 2 semanas para isso acontecer, então eu só tenho que estar feliz, perto das pessoas que eu amo e treinando e me dedicando. Ah, pô, mas se você falasse, você ganhava muito mais dinheiro. Fazer o quê? Eu não sei fazer isso, eu não sei falar desse jeito, eu não sei vender a luta dessa forma. Não é o meu jeito de vender, então deixa eu ganhar o dinheiro que eu tô ganhando, que é o único jeito que eu sei fazer, é dessa forma, tranquilo pra minha. Na hora que fecha o queijo lá dentro, eu sei o que tem que fazer, que é andar pra frente, botar minhas mãos, e aí, no final de tudo, o que mais importa é o seu braço sendo levantado. Quem sabe que ele tem um boxe agressivo, que manda 2, 3 mãos, né, andando pra frente, ele é um cara perigoso, nocauteou Max Holloway.
Weighing in from the analyst's chair, Chael Sonnen gave his perspective on Charles Oliveira's claim that he could beat Ilia. Sonnen acknowledged Charles's confidence, but pointed to Topuria's history of knocking out some of the UFC's most durable opponents. For Sonnen, Ilia's striking power and mental fortitude were too significant to overlook. He didn't dismiss Charles entirely, but emphasized how rare it is to find someone with Ilia's composure and finishing ability. This analytical input added weight to the growing argument that Ilia might be operating on another level.
All right. Well, unless you're Ilia Topuria and you've been knocking everybody out. If you're Ilia Topuria and you knocked out the reigning BMF champion, who never even been knocked down, Max Holloway, if you're Ilia Topuria and you knocked out Volkanovski, who was ranked #1 pound for pound in our entire industry, then it's a little bit different when you say, I'm gonna knock him out.
From there, Robert Whittaker offered a more cautious viewpoint. He admitted his personal admiration for Charles, calling him a favorite, but was quick to highlight that Ilia Topuria posed a different kind of threat. Whittaker noted the challenge of predicting Ilia's performance at a higher weight since this was new territory. Even with uncertainty, he couldn't deny the danger Ilia brought into the octagon. His breakdown struck a balance, respect for Oliveira's legacy, but also curiosity about how Topuria's skill set would translate when facing a veteran of Charles's caliber.
Yeah, it sucked. You know, I hope we see Burns. You know, I hope we see him come back, put it all together, and just maybe have a good retirement fight. I like the legends such as Burns when they announce their retirement fight. They go in there, UFC does a good thing for them, put together some stuff, and they come in, bang it out one last time, and kind of leave on a good note. I want to see that. Like, who wants to be fighting in their 40s?
Kind of like what they're doing, I guess, with Dustin and Max. So we've got potentially Wonder Boy. Is there anyone else there? What I don't want is to put him up against a real young, hungry, up-and-comer like Prates or someone, and for him to get starched again, you know? That's not what he needs right now. He needs some good fights.
What's funny is, like, the welterweight division's completely changed, hasn't it?
How good is it? To be fair,
it's just like all the guards changed.
Meanwhile, Renato Moicano closed out the line of reactions with heartfelt honesty. Though he held deep respect and affection for Charles Oliveira, he admitted he had to side with Ilia Topuria. Moicano recognized Charles's past accomplishments, but felt that momentum and form were favoring Ilia. Loyalty to a legend, but belief in the future. Moicano's words wrapped up the media day energy with emotional weight, setting the emotional stakes for a clash built on legacy and ambition.
Yeah, I'm saying that with a broken heart. You know, I'm a huge Charles Oliveira fan. I wish this guy could speak English so you guys can see the emotion, the connection that he has with the fans, especially being from a very poor background. You know, the way he communicates himself in Portuguese is amazing. I am a fan, but Topuria beat 2 of legends on his previous fight. You know, he beat Volkanovski, that you can arguably tell that on the first fight, Volkanovski did very good. And then Max Holloway, and Max Holloway just knocked Gaethje. So Topuria is very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
As the breakdowns continued, Luke Thomas offered a counterweight to the Topuria hype. On Submission Radio, he cautioned against writing off Charles Oliveira too quickly. Highlighting Charles's experience, adaptability, and deadly submission game, Thomas emphasized how Oliveira thrives when the fight descends into chaos. He pointed out that Topuria, for all his strengths, had not yet been tested under that level of pressure. With that perspective, the matchup regained a sense of balance, less predictable, more layered, and certainly more intriguing.
Probably a little bit, yeah, there's probably a little bit. I don't think it's a huge amount, but yeah, dude, Charles is legit, and he's a former champion. He's older, but I don't think over the hill. He has taken a lot of damage, but he's also really battle tested. He has offense in every single dimension: standing, back, ground, turtle, guard, you name it, clinch. He's got offense everywhere. You know, he's a real threat to anybody, and I think people are assuming that Topuria, after knocking out Volk and Max back-to-back, is just going to go up there and bludgeon him. And by the way, I think that that's also a very plausible scenario. But, you know, again, back with Ilia Topuria, people are like, oh, you know, what if he wins? Could he go to 170? And I'm like, guys, he has Charles yet.
Picking up from Luke's cautionary take, Dan Hardy stepped in with a measured analysis of his own. He praised Charles Oliveira's technical brilliance, especially on the ground, but leaned toward Ilia Topuria's explosive power and pinpoint accuracy. Hardy believed that Topuria's striking could be the deciding factor if the fight stayed on the feet. His outlook didn't discount Charles's danger. It respected it, yet favored the sharper, fresher athlete. By this point, opinions had formed a full circle. Both dangerous, both capable, but only one could emerge victorious.
Charles Oliveira is a phenomenal martial artist. The problem with Oliveira, and I have this as well when I picture him, you know, I have little highlight reels of fighters in my head. So when you say a fighter's name, I start playing a little highlight reel of them. And sometimes it's just them completely brutalizing people. Like with Khabib, I never see Khabib on the back foot in my head. Whereas Charles Oliveira, I see him getting dropped and doing awkward things on the ground where his head's in bad positions to get punched, and him slumping against the fence with his injured shoulder. You know, these are pieces that I've got in my mind's highlight reel that builds the character. And so what that does is it creates a scenario where I can visualize Ilia Topuria cracking him with a big shot and dropping him, and then being smart enough not to follow him to the floor. You know, post on the back of his head and just keep hitting him until the referee jumps in and stops him.
As Fight Week buzz grew, Ilia Topuria made headlines with his appearance on the MMA Hour alongside Ariel Helwani. When asked about Charles Oliveira, he delivered a confident statement, insisting that Charles only needed to show up because he would take care of the rest. With his typical poise, Ilia reiterated his intention to finish the fight in the first round. This wasn't bravado for cameras. It reflected the belief that had fueled his rise. Each word built pressure, making the eventual face-off feel even more combustible.
What's going to happen with Charles? He thinks that he has some opportunities, but the reality is that he has not. The only thing he has to do is like show up, and I'm going to do the rest.
What are you envisioning now as far as the way the fight goes?
I'm going to finish him in the first round.
You say that to me like I say I'm going to get a coffee.
Yeah, because he walks forward. This is all I need. Like the time that takes me always to knock out my opponents is the time that takes me to close the distance, because they run away. They run, they move to side, and once I close the distance and I go with my combinations, I knock them out. But with Charles, I'm not gonna need to close the distance because he walks forward, and this is all I need to take his lights out. Like, just try to stay.
Responding to the escalating confidence from Topuria's camp, Oliveira offered a reflective answer when asked about Ilia's style. Rather than diving into tactical breakdowns, he turned inward, suggesting that no strike Ilia throws could ever match what life had already dealt him. Charles's response carried emotional weight, showing a man molded through hardship and ready for anything.
What he does or doesn't do, they can't match what you can do, or in terms of what you prepared for.
Na realidade, sendo bem verdadeiro, é que ninguém nem nada nessa vida vai me bater mais do que a vida já me bateu. Então, por isso que esses caras falam, que esses caras pensam que vão deixar de fazer, pra mim não faz diferença nenhuma.
In reality, it doesn't matter how hard someone hits me or they bring to the table. No one's ever gonna hit me harder than life has hit me. So what people say, what people do and what people can do against me.
Moving on, Haider Emil's take added fuel to Topuria's momentum. Though brief, his backing of Ilia reinforced what many rising fighters have echoed. Topuria represents the sport's future. His support, like others before him, reflected both belief and realism. The collective confidence around Ilia was no longer isolated. It had become a growing wave.
Definitely winning that one. Just stylistically, and I just think stylistically it just works stronger in Topuria's favor.
However, John Anik's perspective mirrored the fans' anticipation. He acknowledged how close the matchup was, but leaned toward Ilia after assessing the momentum and fight IQ. Anik's support wasn't hype, it was calculated. As his voice added weight to the Topuria side, the narrative swelled until a contrasting view reminded everyone of Charles's danger.
Can Topuria do it again and knock out another legend?
Dude, is Ilia Topuria getting the red corner? I mean, my goodness. Can we put some respect on the name Charles Oliveira? No, it's a fascinating fight. Yes, Justin Gaethje, who's the hardest man he's ever been hit by in all of his fights, and it's Charles Oliveira. And I'm just excited to see what Charles can do, because the betting line suggests that he's up against it. A lot of Charles's contemporaries are suggestive that this is a custom-made matchup for Ilia Topuria. He's taken on the most decorated finisher in UFC history and the man who reigns supreme atop this weight class. So fascinated to see it. And I think my biggest takeaway with Topuria is just the way guys like Kenny Florian talk about him in such superlative terms. And, we'll see if he can live up to the hype. I'm excited to see him in a division, not cut too much weight. And great way to sort of usher him in.
Bryce Mitchell stepped in with a more cautious tone. While respecting Topuria's skills, he warned against overlooking Charles Oliveira's unpredictability and elite submission. For Bryce, this wasn't just a striker versus grappler. It was a dangerous collision of styles. His measured concern added tension, keeping the fight's outcome anything but certain.
We got that big title fight coming up between Ilia Topuria, who you fought obviously, and Charles Oliveira. How do you think Ilia will do in that fight? Who do you see winning that one?
I didn't know that was a title fight.
Yeah, because Islam vacated, so he's moving up to 170.
I had no clue.
No worries, that's why I'm here.
Man, I'm behind on the news, brother.
Yeah.
Wow, that's big news.
Yeah.
So Topuria's going for the 55 against Oliveira. Man, first thing I think of is the straight line attacks of Oliveira, like the knees and the clinch being the main problem for
Charles Oliveira offered respectful insight into Topuria's style. He acknowledged Ilia as a natural wrestler and emphasized that facing someone like him requires strategic variation. Rather than downplaying his opponent, Charles focused on the challenge ahead, showing respect while underlining his own readiness to adapt and compete at the highest level.
Cada de uma forma.
Each and every one of them is a different challenge and a difficult challenge on our own. Ilia is a great boxer, someone's going to be standing with me. Ilia is a guy that's a wrestler in nature. He's going to take you down, and you have to approach him in different ways.
Do you prefer this matchup?
In the end, Ilia Topuria, when asked about a potential UFC event in Spain, remained grounded. He clarified that such decisions rest with the UFC, not with outcomes. For him, it wasn't about beating Charles. It was about timing and opportunity. His response showed maturity, keeping the spotlight on the bigger picture beyond just one fight.
Hi, Ilia down here. You spoke earlier about wanting to bring the UFC to Spain. What do you think a win against Charles would push that forward, do you think?
I don't think it has to do anything about win or losses. Everything is about the deal of the UFC with the television here. So if they get a new deal, and we could have a...
Now that all is said and done, it's your turn. What did you think of the fight, the build-up, and the reactions from the pros? Did it live up to the hype? Drop your thoughts below. We want to know how you saw this showdown unfold.